So if this thing right here looks familiar to you at all and you have one of them in your enclosure with one of your reptiles, I'm going to tell you a story today that may make you reconsider keeping it in the enclosure. So this is something that I'm tentatively titling Reptile Horror Story because that's exactly what it was. And the time of this story was August 14th at about 1 a.m. And that is when I realized that my female crested gecko was in this situation in there, right there. You can see on the screen right there in the picture that I'm showing that my gecko was in this situation. And now you might see that picture and be very alarmed, as was I. And I was freaking out. And I actually have the piece right here that you can see is missing this part right here on it. And the green screen is taking out the green of the leaves, so it might look a little weird. But this right here is the exact same thing as what's on the screen right there. And I found my gecko stuck in it at about 1 o'clock in the morning. And I remember noticing that she hadn't eaten for a couple days. And I thought, oh, it's normal. Sometimes they just don't eat. And then I realized I hadn't seen her for a couple of days. And so I started to investigate, and that's where I found my gecko stuck in this thing that's actually sold as part of a crested gecko kit. And I was doing a little bit of research for this video ahead of time, and it looks like they are still being sold as part of this kit. As we can see right here, this totem that I have right here, this one, that my gecko got stuck in is still being sold today. And that is why I'm kind of giving you a word of caution for this, because if it happened to me, it's entirely possible that it could happen to someone else. And to continue with my story, I noticed that my gecko was stuck in there, and me being someone who's not just gonna let something horrible happen or just give up, or I don't know what else you would do in this scenario, but grab a hacksaw and start cutting. And that's exactly what I did. I mean, I tried to push and see if I could get her out, but she was stuck, as you're seeing by the pictures and the live video that I actually found on an old hard drive from taking the picture with the live video setting. So there's like 1 or 2 second clips from each picture. This gecko was stuck. This gecko looked like it could barely move at this point because it was probably dehydrated, and instantly I thought it was dead. I thought there was no way. This was a death sentence. This gecko was never going to survive this. And so I got the hacksaw, and I'm like, if this gecko is going to die anyways, I'm going to cut it and try to get this thing out of here. So I spent hours cutting and cutting and cutting. And as you can see right here are my saw marks. Where's it at? Right here are my saw marks from where I cut this thing. And I cut it all the way to where it was almost through. And then rather than, cutting all the way through to where I could potentially cut my gecko, I just hulked out and broke it off of there so that I could get the gecko out. And I did luckily manage to get the gecko out of there, but I still was not confident whatsoever in the circumstances that this gecko was going to survive after being stuck in this thing for who knows how long. And so, yeah, that's my gecko horror story. I have plenty of pictures from this. It was such a terrible thing. And luckily, we're here 6 years later, and she is still alive. So she's hanging out here on my hand. She's probably going to wake up and go crazy talking here. But I'm very happy to say that this gecko is still alive. I'm going to put her away before she goes too crazy. Definitely don't need her going wild while I'm trying to film this video and talking. Don't need to disrupt her any more than she has been in her history. But yeah, gecko is still alive 6 years later, 2024. very happy to say that that did not kill her. She's very resilient and still around. For me to tell this story and not be completely bummed about it with a bummer of an ending. So ultimately, what I'm getting at with this whole thing is check what you have in your gecko's enclosure. Make sure that there's no way that they can get stuck in something before you put it in there and potentially have a horrible evening, night, middle of the night, the way that I did. And if you have one of these totems, I might suggest cutting this part off. I mean, even this top part, I don't think a gecko would get stuck in there, but you never know. And it's a word of caution in a reptile horror story that had a happy ending. So with that being said, thanks for tuning into this one. Maybe check out another video that I have about one of the projects that I have going, lily white axanthic crested geckos, and a couple other things. So thanks for watching, and hopefully we'll see you next time for another video.